The next time you're pumping gas or getting a quick snack at your local convenience store, look up. Chances are you're being recorded. There are hundreds of thousands of surveillance cameras set up at convenience stores worldwide, with countless hours of footage recorded every single day. However, what was captured at this specific convenience store has never happened anywhere else. Make sure to stay to the end of today's story to find out how this horrific act caught on camera, which we're going to show you, traces back to one fateful purchase. Our story begins in the small town of Dalton, Georgia. A frequent customer of a local convenience store stops by to pick up some snacks. He goes into the store, grabs the items he wishes to purchase, and heads toward the registers to pay. The customer knows the staff very well and which employee would most likely be working that night. However, he couldn't find that person or any other employees. After walking around the store for a few minutes, he goes toward the back room. He notices the door to the employee-only back room is halfway open. Peering through the gap but without opening the door, he is met with a horrific sight. The customer could see the legs and feet of a store employee on the floor along with a large pool of blood. Shocked by what he had just seen, he makes his way to the front of the store and dials 911.
County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Airport Road, 3385.
Airport Road.
Yeah, we just walked in the store and seen the guys down, the chain on the floor, looked like they'd been robbed.
Could you tell if he was injured at all?
I seen blood on the floor and he's down. I didn't even walk back there and look. Ladies can go look.
There's blood everywhere.
He's hurt.
No, he's dead.
He's dead.
He's dead.
Oh, man.
Oh my goodness.
Deputies from the Whitfield County Sheriff's Office and Georgia Bureau of Investigation agents arrive on the scene. It's clear to the officers that the man laying on the backroom floor is deceased. The ID from the victim's wallet identifies the man as DK Chadhauri. 37-year-old DK had recently emigrated from India to the United States seeking a better life. He works at the popular convenience store Crimetastic Express. In the few months he had been working at the store, coworkers described him as friendly and hardworking. On the night he was killed, DK started his usual night shift at 7 p.m. The Crimetastic Express was open 24 hours a day. As detectives walk through the scene, they find one of the cash registers open and empty, along with lottery tickets thrown about on the floor. From observing the body, it was apparent that the victim had been stabbed. There were likely multiple stab wounds, as it appeared that the victim bled out and died of blood loss. Officers try to assess what had taken place. Witnesses at the scene, along with employees of the convenience store that had arrived shortly after, are interviewed. They could not come up with anyone or even a reason why anyone would want to hurt DK. Detectives take note of the many cameras on the inside and outside of the store. In order to watch the footage, they must go into the same room DK's body was in. They begin reviewing the security footage. Luckily, all of the cameras had been working. Detectives play the footage from around 9 p.m. DK can be seen on camera near the registers, assisting customers. In the hours leading up to the attack, he is seen walking casually around the employee areas of the store. Later that night, as DK walked toward the back room, something catches his attention. A man is seen chasing him into the back room. DK tries to close the door behind him, and that's when the door is hit open. Switching cameras to the one inside the back room, DK can be seen fighting with the attacker and knocking away the attacker's gun. The man then pulls out a knife and begins stabbing DK. Duct tape is put on DK's mouth to prevent him from calling out for help. The assailant then squats down and watches DK slowly die. It's like a predator observing its prey. The attacker at one point begins smothering DK. Next, the man can be seen pushing down on DK's chest so that his heart would pump out more blood. Apparently, he wasn't dying fast enough. Investigators replay the footage to get a better look at the killer. The killer had sunglasses on and was wearing a white hoodie tied up very tight around their face. While the murder is taking place, there are customers that come into the store to make a purchase. They place their items on the counter and wait for an employee. After waiting for a while at the registers, one of the customers searches around the store for an employee. The customer walks past the closed door of the back room but ends up going toward the front when they are unable to find anyone. When the suspect is done killing DK, he exits the back room, closes the door behind him, and then walks to the registers. The customer waiting at the front sees the suspect and comes forward to pay for his items. Some dialogue is exchanged between the suspect and the customer. It appears that the suspect acted as an employee to tell the people in the store to leave. Investigators continue to watch the surveillance footage to see what the suspect does next. After the customers in the store left, there was no one else on the scene beside the victim and the suspect. The suspect with gloves on goes to the register and empties it. He then helps himself to some lottery tickets. With the lottery tickets and cash in hand, he goes to the back room where DK is lying. He puts the stolen items into the black duffel bag that he carried in with him. The suspect puts the bag over his shoulder and then leaves out the front door. Switching to the exterior camera, the suspect is seen walking diagonally toward the road away from the store. He did not get into a vehicle, which left detectives with no vehicle description to put a lookout for. Since they were lacking a vehicle description and didn't know who the individual was, they were at a point where they didn't have any information to give to the public to help locate the suspect. Detectives scour the surveillance footage to see when the suspect arrived. They don't see anyone enter the store wearing a white hoodie, but they do see an individual come into the store wearing a black jacket and carrying a black duffel bag. No one else came into the store with a black duffel bag. The individual walks in and immediately goes toward the restroom. The customer with the black bag then disappears into the restroom and into a camera blind spot. Minutes later, an individual is seen coming from the same area, this time in a white hoodie carrying a black bag. That person then commits the crime. Switching back to the camera covering the entrance, the person leaving in white and entering in black appears to be the same person. This was a huge break for the investigation. Detectives expand the search outside the store to see if there are any more surveillance cameras. One of the detectives recalled from past cases that the Kangaroo convenience store across the street had a camera that captured the front of the Cancoos store. Before anyone gets confused, the store where DK was killed is named Cancoos, and the convenience store across the street is named Kangaroo, because of course, they have to have similar names. So keep that in mind and let's get back to it. The detective requests a warrant for the CCTV footage from the Kangaroo store as it may help them find out which direction the killer left in. Back at the scene, a Whitfield County crime scene technician begins processing the back room where DK was murdered. He begins by taking photos and measurements of the items of evidence. As the technician searches near DK's body, he looks down and underneath the equipment DK was slumped over against. He spots some kind of object. He looks a little bit further and snaps a picture. The object was a phone. It most likely fell there during the scuffle between the victim and the perpetrator. Detectives at the scene are unable to determine if the phone was the victim's or the perpetrator's, so they sent it off to be analyzed to determine the phone's owner. In the meantime, surveillance footage comes back from the Kangaroo convenience store. The Cancoos where DK was killed can be seen in the distance. The detectives look for any sign of the suspect arriving or departing the scene. They rewind back to 9 p.m. and try to spot the suspect arriving at the scene. Instead, they identify one vehicle in particular that pulls up to a gas pump and stops at the Kangaroo gas station. A person gets out of that vehicle wearing the same white hoodie that the suspect comes out of the Cancoos restroom in. The person goes into the store. This is the first time detectives really get a good look at who they believe to be the suspect. The person has curly blonde hair. This is when detectives realize that the suspect is actually a woman. After purchasing some items, she exits the store and gets back into her vehicle. This gives detectives their first vehicle description. It was a green Kia Soul. They were unable to make out a tag from the surveillance footage, but they got the vehicle information out as quickly as they could to other agencies. Playing the footage further, the woman drives off in the direction that the suspect walks toward after the murder was committed. She appears to have parked further away and walked up to commit the crime. Next, investigators interview Charles Branson, the customer who interacted with the suspect after the killing. He makes himself known to police after hearing about the murder.
I went and got a Coke and a bag of Fagos. Bag of chips. Yep, and I put them up on the counter, and I put my card up there. She was like, "We're not open to business." I was like, "Not open to business?" I said, "I'm just getting my debit card back." She said, "Me no have your debit card," and she's talking like she's a Middle Eastern girl, but I could tell she wasn't.
The suspect used a fake voice when telling the patrons in the store to leave. She used broken English and an accent to try to confuse them. As word spreads about the murder, the local community is left shocked and in fear, particularly because there were no arrests made. A crime of this magnitude was not normal in this area. A lot of people that had known DK stopped by the scene, talked to other employees, and gave their condolences. Back at the police department, one of the crime scene technicians for Whitfield County was very excited as he was able to unlock the phone found near DK's body. As detectives look through the photos on the phone, they realize that it doesn't appear to be DK's phone. There are no pictures of him, pictures from the store, or anything like that. They realize from watching the store surveillance video that the pictures on the phone are of the same person, the suspect. Detectives were able to pull identification data from the phone. The suspect's social media page provided them with even more pictures to compare to the videos. The phone belonged to Sky Mims, a 25-year-old with no prior criminal history. Sky had a pretty significant presence on the internet compared to the average person. Detectives realized that she wasn't your normal perpetrator.
What's up? Joe Sky, and I just want to know if I can be your obsession.
She was a young woman who had come down from Detroit to try to get into the hip-hop rap music business in Atlanta. That was her purpose for being in Georgia.
What it used to be, for when I'm losing, I'm chasing cream, I can't shake them, it's running through the streets and through album movement, see? From any G-Spin usually, no other rappers are doing me.
Detectives searched their database to see if they can locate Sky Mims. They were unable to come up with an address for her in Georgia, so they released a picture of Sky Mims to the local media. They needed to let the public know that this is a dangerous person. If she had done this crime, then she could easily do another. Authorities needed to find her and find her fast. 2 days after DK's murder, police get a phone call informing them that Sky Mims was staying at a home in Bartow County, which is about 40 minutes from the Cancuse. Detectives immediately reach out to the Marshal Service. Surveillance is set up outside of the residence in question. A vehicle that matched the description of the car that Sky Mims was driving moments before the murder was parked outside of the residence. A search of the vehicle's tag number reveals that it had been stolen by someone fitting Sky Mims' description. As the marshals surveil the home, a female walks out the front door and gets into the vehicle and leaves the residence. U.S. Marshals follow and perform a traffic stop on the vehicle. The person inside the vehicle was not Sky Mims, but the woman told marshals that Sky Mims was in fact inside the residence. While the Kia Soul is seized for evidence, the marshals approach the house. They make their approach with rifles in hand, not knowing how Sky will react when she is confronted. The front door was unlocked. They tried to get Sky to come out. They knocked and announced that they were the police. There was no response. Upon entry, they observe a stairwell that led to the second floor. As a team of marshals cleared the main floor of the residence, a single marshal held position aiming up the stairwell. He calls out to Sky, but there's no response for a few moments. Then, suddenly, she pops out. Sky was completely naked and she would only show the marshals one of her hands. She was screaming, "Shoot me! Come on and shoot me!" She wanted them to believe that she was armed and that she was going to hurt them. She wanted the marshals to take her life. They commanded her to show her other hand and they told her that they were not there to hurt her. Sky was in a very desperate situation in her mind. She knew that she had just committed a murder and that she was about to have to face up to the consequences. She eventually showed them her other hand and then started coming down the stairs where she was taken into custody. Marshals put a sheet over her to cover her up. She showed no remorse. During her transport to the station, she was able to get out of her handcuffs and showed them to the officer. The officer pulled over and put the cuffs on her again, tighter this time, along with leg shackles. She kept telling the deputy that he needed to kill her. The lottery tickets that were taken from the store after the murder were found in the bedroom where she was staying. Some of them were in the trash. They were the ones that had been scratched off and were not winners. There was also a smaller batch of tickets that had been scratched off and were winners from anywhere from a free ticket to small amounts of money. They were rubber banded together and she apparently intended on cashing those in. A knife was found in her car along with a pair of gloves. Detectives found a pellet gun that looked similar to the one used by the killer in the surveillance video. So in the search of the vehicle and home, there was a tremendous amount of evidence found. The gloves, knife, and gun were all sent to the lab for DNA testing. After her arrest, Sky Mims was brought to the Whitfield County Jail. Detectives put her in an interview room and began by asking questions about her vehicle. She started giggling and rather quickly lawyered up. Sky Mims is charged with the murder of DK Chadhauri. Her DNA is taken and sent to the lab to compare to the gloves and knife found in her car. The gloves found in Sky Mims' stolen vehicle were found to have blood on the outside of them. That blood matched the DNA of the victim. The inside of the gloves was also tested and touch DNA from Sky's hands was found and matched to her DNA, showing that she had her hands inside the gloves. The victim's blood was found on the knife. It also had DNA from Sky Mims. The knife went into DK's side and hit his aorta, which caused massive bleeding. There was nothing that could have been done to help him survive that wound. It was a fatal wound. The kangaroo surveillance footage reveals the final piece of evidence against Sky Mims. She can be seen at the register using her own credit card to pay for the items she purchased. From that video and that timestamp, detectives were able to get financial records connecting that credit card back to her. She must have really wanted some cash back. On May 29, 2014, a Whitfield County grand jury indicted Sky Mims for malice murder. The charges read as follows: 4 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, armed robbery, burglary, possession of a knife during the commission of a felony, and theft by bringing stolen property into the state. She pled not guilty to all charges. Through the use of surveillance footage, detectives are able to piece together what happened that night. Sky Mims was at the Kangaroo store for a brief period of time. When the Kangaroo convenience store closed early, she went across the street to the Cancoos. She went inside and into the bathroom. She changed clothes from dark clothes into lighter clothes. She left the bathroom, and when the victim wasn't looking, she rushed him. She got him into the back room, and that's where she stabbed him. She then went out to the cash register, took the money and the lottery tickets, and then casually walked out the door and disappeared. Sky Mims' behavior was shocking to the extent that it was premeditated, with how aggressively she attacked DK and how brutally she killed him. Prosecutors have a theory as to Sky Mims' motive. In the days leading up to the murder, Sky purchased a lottery ticket where if you won the grand prize, you would get $500 a week for the rest of your life. She became obsessed with that ticket. She believed that if she had $500 a week coming in for the rest of her life, she could pursue an art career, a music career, or a modeling career, and not have to worry about that basic level of income. After she murdered DK, the primary thing that she stole from the store were lottery tickets, and that specific $500 a week for life lottery ticket. She took nearly an entire roll. Those were the same tickets that were found in the place she was staying, where she meticulously scratched them off hoping to find a grand prize winner. On April 11, 2015, Sky Mims was found guilty of all charges by a jury. She was sentenced to life in prison without parole.